Greetings and salutations. I am your humble Adobe instructor, AJ Wood, and this is a tutorial brought to you by tipsquirrel.com. We're talking Photoshop CS5, and today I'm going to talk about high dynamic range imagery, or HDR. Let's go ahead and jump in. On my screen you can see that I have a new panel. It's called Mini Bridge. I'm going to click on the icon and open this panel, and inside I'll select the images and I'm going to bring them up full screen. As we take a look, you can see what I have are three different exposures of the same scene. I'm going to use Photoshop to combine these together as a single exposure. So from within Mini Bridge, I'll click on the Tools button, I'll go to the Photoshop menu, and then choose Merge to HDR Pro. It's worth noting that now's a good time to run and get a cup of coffee. It's going to take a little time to actually go through and crunch these images and combine them into a single exposure that you can play around with in the Merge to HDR Pro dialog box. Right? So just kind of keep that in mind. The better the machine, the faster it's going to run. Alright, it looks like we got our Merge to HDR dialog box up. Let me jump up and pull this in front of you. And I'm going to start by just clicking on a preset. I'm going to grab a photorealistic preset, and what I have now, you're looking at the combined exposures. Right? Let's talk about the faders. We have the first section which talks about edge glow, then I have a tone detail section, and then down towards the bottom is my color section. I'm going to agree with a post that Matt Kloskowski put up earlier this week, and I'm going to move the detail slider. And I want you to see that the detail slider really is sharpening the photo, pulls in a lot of information, and you can really kind of adjust the other faders around this. Right? So I want you to keep in mind, if you're coming to Photoshop CS5 and you're using Photomatix, there's not a one-to-one with the faders. Right? There is going to be a little bit of a learning curve to get up to speed on how the faders work in Merge to HDR Pro. Right, so I start again with the detail slider. This really kind of just grabs all the sharpness, pulls it up, pulls up the contrast, and then I can start playing around with the other faders. So you'll notice now if I drag up the strength in my edge glow and I drag up the radius in my edge glow, right, this is where you're really getting the haloing that a lot of people see in HDR photos. So if I back the radius off, notice the haloing starts to die down. Certainly if I start to pull the strength down, look at the trees, pull the strength down, I can start to pull back that haloing. I'm going to drop the radius some more, and that works out a little bit better. If I start to move into the tone and detail section again, sliding gamma to the left is going to affect more the mid-tone range. Sliding gamma to the right gives it again kind of a drawn look because we're hitting the highlights and the shadow areas. Right? So I'm actually going to move mine a little bit more to the left. Playing around with the exposure is just going to adjust the overall brightness in the scene. So really, really bright, really, really dark. Playing with the shadow and the highlight faders will make the shadow and highlights either brighter or darker. So I'm just going to darken up the shadow areas. Play around with the highlights. Here they are brighter. I'm going to pull that back down a little bit. If we jump into the color section, it's worth noting that vibrance is going to target the muted colors first, right? And then saturation is going to boost up the overall scene. So I'm going to take vibrance all the way to the top. Look at how that grabs the sky. It kind of grabs part of the rust color. And then if I boost up saturation, that's just a little bit too much, a little bit over the top. So I'm going to pull saturation back. Right? So those are some of the faders inside. Those are some of the adjustments for HDR. Certainly it's subjective. You're going to play around and decide what you like. I do recommend going to the presets, and I'll just run through them real quick. You can see that this is kind of a surrealistic high contrast preset. That's really kind of over the top, and I don't know, it gives it kind of a mood. I think, it's not too bad. I have a more saturated preset here we can pull up. This one a little bit too cartoony for me. I'm not a big fan of that. But we also have black and white. So here's a monochromatic conversion. I actually, kind of like this one. Right? But what I might do is maybe punch in back some of the vibrance, punch back in some of the saturation, and bring back some of the color to the scene. Right? Just kind of give it a desaturated look. Once you have played around with the faders, the thing that really stands out in Merge to HDR Pro is its ability to remove artifacts. Right? So I'm going to make a couple adjustments here. Let me go back to the photorealistic preset. Right? And I'm going to just pull up some of the detail here. I want to do that. Right? That's good. Drop down my gamma. And I'm going to zoom in on the bottom portion of the photo. Because you can notice down in the bottom portion of the photo, the weeds were kind of blowing in the wind when I took this photograph. So I had it on a tripod, but I couldn't do anything to account for the wind. So I'm going to go ahead and check the box that says Remove Ghosts. And what this will do is pick one of your images, the one that's the most balanced, and it will make it the base image. And you can see that it essentially removed the artifacts, removed the weeds from the other two images and took them out of the scene. Right? So that, the ghost feature, the remove ghost feature, I really like in this Merge to HDR Pro. Right? I don't use it a whole lot in Photomatics. I think it works really, really well here. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out, and let's go ahead and merge this together. And as this is combining together, let me give you a couple tips. If you're going to do some HDR photography, keep in mind, shoot with a tripod, right? Use your camera's auto bracketing if it comes with it. Set your camera to aperture priority. If you can, use burst mode and then use a cable release, right? Looks like our image is done. Let's go ahead and we'll pull it up. I'm going to close the mini panel. The mini bridge there, and then this is the final exposure, right? So you can see that's how you use mini bridge. That's how you do HDR with Merge to HDR in Photoshop. I hope
that was easy.
well, it was quite a bit for me. So I'm AJ Wood. Appreciate you hanging out this morning. Have an awesome time. Hey, great afternoon even. Ciao.